Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of Crashlands DevLog, a game devlog from Uplezz Games. Crashlands is an experiment for us to create a dark, underwater puzzle game where the player controls a small vessel with controls for throttle, rotation, and lateral movement, and aims to help humanity in a dark crisis by completing various tasks. While there are many pieces of the process, we will try to cover as much interesting parts as we can in this series. Our aim with the devlog is to have regular showcases and progress demonstrations. Also, we would love to hear what you think about the development. As the game details are still being planned and designed, we started with a high-level concept. The first stop is to have a player control the vessel to enable us testing various elements of the gameplay. What we have in mind is to have a physics-based ship with 2 or 4 thrusters. These can have gimbals, so depending on the player input, the thrusting angle is controlled, and also based on the player input, the thrust is set by the ship's systems. As the ship is moved by the thrusters, the vehicle needs to have fuel, which is consumed depending on the thruster's usage. The ship itself has at least one pilot who also needs to breathe underwater. So oxygen canisters are installed on the body and the oxygen is getting constantly used per person. Along with the fuel containers, oxygen canisters can be also upgraded later in the game to enable the player to travel longer distances. From the video you can see that first we had a very small labyrinth-like test map, which was replaced with a larger but much simpler level. However, at some point we started to think about how the game will look like, so we've created a small terrain for testing purposes and started to work on more visual details to get the hang of the overall atmosphere. While the terrain can be a great help, there are other details which are important. As the game will take place underwater, I wanted to create an initial impression of what the underwater will look like. I've decided I want to have the depth of the water imitated. Added some particles as bubbles, have some god rays, which I will need to have a better implementation for, but also water caustics and some distortion to make the underwater feeling believable. As I'm considering myself as a complete beginner in Unity, at first I started with watching videos on how to tackle most of these, and eventually at first I was adding a free asset for the water caustics. This asset, however, was working only with the standard renderer, and I wanted to switch to the universal render pipeline to enable us to use volumetric light, decals and more in the future. Because of this, I have replaced the water caustic asset with a newly created shader graph solution, which does the trick, but will refine it later as I am not entirely satisfied with the effect. The last part which was done is the water distortion, and not counting the controlling of the ship, this was the hardest part of all. I've seen shaders where vertices have been moved to create the effect of waves or wind in the grass, but this was something I was always fascinated with. Through my gaming, I've seen this distortion effect used for mimicking heat waves, force waves, even underwater waves, etc. Thankfully, there are many videos on this topic online, and I was able to create a shader which takes a screen position, modifies it by using a time-scrolled gradient noise, and finally renders the color of the pixel on the shader output. There are some options in Unity here and there which had to be worked with to enable the effect, but it was thankfully worked like a charm. After fixing a couple of problems with the order of the rendering, I have a fully working distortion with easy enough configuration to imitate various strength of water waves. In the next period, I'm planning to extend the underwater world with multiple things like plants, fishes, have various lighting for day and night. Also, I have gameplay elements and on my list, like pickup items, shopping screen, interactive life forms. If you are interested in future episodes, please consider subscribing. If you like text adventure games, you can check out our previous game, Saving Mikey. The link will be in the description below. Thank you for watching.